I did not plan this, but I did have the stroke of inspiration, so I appreciate this. Does anyone know this obscure Australian punk film called Dogs in Space? I got this t-shirt today in the mail. That is not my story, but I suddenly realized I'm in a good room to explain that. So I am 51 years old, and I am, thank you. I'm not used to being in a room where I'm one of the younger people in the room. But this is what's funny. This is why I say this. Because my seminal moments will seem to people younger than me, which is a lot of people these days. P.S. everyone I ever work with, but that's beside the point. My seminal moments seem like ancient history, so it's actually like very funny because these will seem silly to you guys who've actually I don't know, hung out with Led Zeppelin. Like, that's huge to me. I don't have that. But when you get to be 50 plus, you notice that you've had this life of all these little moments that didn't seem to mean much at the time, and then you suddenly collect them all, and you talk to people younger than you, or people your age or older than you, and you suddenly realize you have this magical cache of experiences that you didn't take seriously at the time. So a couple of quick ones. My very first concert was Madonna, Like a Virgin tour. And there are two, I grew up in New York City, so there are two kinds of people that saw Madonna Like a Virgin. There are the people who saw it at Madison Square Garden, where there's like 10,000+. And then there are people like me who were lucky enough to see the small show, which was at Radio City Music Hall, the first two nights, only 8,000, very intimate. And the band that opened for her, earlier mentioned, were these three guys grabbing their crotches and spitting beer and cursing to 6,000 of us in mesh tops and leather bracelets who were horrified and not impressed at all. And they were the Beastie Boys. Again, moments you don't appreciate when you are little. Another weird story that's more modern to me is I was a huge Duran Duran fan, massive. We've also covered that tonight, again, the inspiration. And collected everything in the entire world. I'm actually now a writer, and I'm still a singer-songwriter. I'm a singer-songwriter, P.S., but I'm writing now. I'm doing a screenplay about a stalker, which is something I know a lot about from being a Duranie and having learned how to properly stalk people with focus. But in my stalking, I collected every single thing ever that came from this band, and I had this unauthorized, probably many unauthorized biographies that you buy in, the cigar store and things like that. And recently I rearranged the bookshelves and put this thing I pulled out of a suitcase on the shelf and noticed it was written by Neil Gaiman. And I was so confused, was he a fan? How did Neil Gaiman write an unauthorized Duran Duran biography in 1984? And we did a little Google, and it turns out it's apparently his very first published work. He was a hustler, and he got this gig, and it's by a company called Proteus Books, which shortly thereafter went out of business. So there were only about 300 copies of this Duran Duran unauthorized biography, and I have one, authentically, from being 12. And it's worth like $4,500 on eBay or whatever. I'm not selling it. That's not why I'm talking about this. But because you get older, and then everyone knows everyone, a friend of mine is Neil Gaiman's promoter. He works at AEG Live. So on December 19th, my husband and I went, he got us the tickets and the meet and greet passes and everything. And we went to see Neil Gaiman, who apparently every Christmas dresses like Charles Dickens and reads a Christmas carol on stage from Charles Dickens' original edited script, because Charles Dickens used to read a Christmas carol on stage. So many stories tangentially, but anyway, we went to the meet and greet, and I pulled out everyone had their copies of, all the Neil Gaiman, and I pull out my copy of Duran Duran, the unauthorized biography, and he was laughing, and he said, there's two kinds of people that have this. There's those who bought it on eBay for $4,500, and there's those that bought it in 1984 when they were 14, and I said, well, I was 12, but yes, thank you, so he signed my book. So this is sort of the overture. So, but what I've been thinking about lately is, so I am a singer-songwriter, and I have this whole series of albums out, self-released. And what's funny is I have a song on, I did an album in 2003. It came out in 2002, and I've been doing this tour, kind of a 20th anniversary thing. And it was produced by Sean Mullins, who did the Everything Is Gonna Be All Right. That's Sean Mullins. So he produced this album of mine. I stalked him to get it to work, because, you know, I know how to do that. And so there's a song on it called All of This, and it's all about New York City, where I grew up, and being alone in New York, and New York is your pal when you're alone in New York, and that kind of thing. And there's a line about the John Lennon mosaic in Central Park. So it says, imagine tiled underfoot. And it's, you know, it's a very upbeat song. And I found out one day that a friend of mine who's a singer-songwriter had always been very confused by that lyric, because he thought it was imagine child underfoot. And why was I singing this rousing song about children being stampeded to death on the ground of New York City? And I had to correct him. And then even as we were recording that album, there's a song on it called Simon Says that's a response of mine to 9/11, because we started recording it actually in 2001. And in the bridge, it says, some kind of name for something to blame, for our responsibility, our joy and our pain, our hate and our shame, our changing grip on stability. And the day we were recording that, I'm in the vocal booth, and Sean is at the control desk on the other side. And I finished this big rousing bridge, that's the bridge, and he's back there with this face. And I thought, ooh, I really thought that was a good take. Like, what, did something go wrong? Was I pitchy? What was the problem? And he said, what? He's pushing the button, the talkback mic. He said, what does that mean? I've never heard that word. And I said, what word? He said, grip-on-stability. What is that? And I said, what? He said, you said our changing grip, or whatever. I just, you know, grip-on-stability. And I said, no, it's grip-on-stability. And he said, oh. And, you know, moment of clarity. We were talking about lyrics before. My big one, by the way, was always modern love. What he says in the, anyway, I finally looked it up, and again, I forgot what it says. The other great one is, by the way, Let's Go Crazy. Do you guys know the words to the chorus of Let's Go Crazy? We all know Let's Go Crazy, let's get nuts. Do you know the next line? Let's search for the purple banana till they put us in the truck. That's the real lyric. That's not what we thought we heard. Anyway, tangent. So I had this moment with Sean Mullins, and I thought, this is weird that these people aren't understanding what I'm saying, because I feel like I speak pretty clearly. And then I felt even more backed up when I had this memory of this moment when I was 15. And again, you get older and you forget these things till they become relevant again. I was living in New York City. I was taking guitar lessons for the very first time. So I had my guitar on my back, the soft case, because I'm a girl, and not that we can't handle it, but anyway, I had the soft case, and I was at the bus stop at 86th and Lexington, waiting for the bus, and this older lady came up to me, elderly lady, and she asked if she was standing in the right place, and is this the bus to the west side and everything, and I said yes, and I said yes, this is it was actually not it doesn't matter. Anyway, I answered her, and she said, thank you so much, and then she stopped and she said, you have very good diction. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, old lady. And she said, no, I'm a phoneticist, and I know you have very good diction. And I thought, oh, well, okay, felt a little better. And then she said, I see you're carrying a guitar. I said, yes, I've started taking guitar lessons, and, you know, I hope to be a rock star. She said, my son is a very famous singer-songwriter. I don't even think we said singer-songwriter in 1988, but, you know, she said, my son is a very famous musician. He's a rock star, and you know who he is. And I said, I do? And she said, yes. He's in a band with 3 people, a woman and 2 men, and one of them is named Mary, and one of them is named Paul. Who is my son? And I said, Peter, Paul, and Mary? And she said, yes, my son is Peter Yarrow, and I'm a phoneticist, and you have very good diction. And that was the day that I was validated to know that everyone should always understand all of my lyrics, because according to Peter Yarrow's mother, who I met at a bus stop on 86th Street in 1988, I have very good diction. So these are the gifts we get as we get older. Thank you.